Giants fans wake up to the heartbreaking news that Aaron Judge has rejected the Giants and has re-signed with the New York Yankees. We'll get into what happened and where the Giants will go from here next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And yes, Aaron Judge has rejected the San Francisco Giants. He becomes the latest superstar to turn them down. And when all is said and done, the analysis here is that he kind of played the Giants. They got played by Aaron Judge. He didn't want to be here. He wanted, specifically, I think what he really wanted was to go back to New York. All along, it was speculated that his intention might be, or just that that the allure of being a Yankee for life, Yankee captainship, Monument Park, pinstripes, Hall of Fame, one uniform, all that might be what draws him back to New York, and that they have the capability to match any offer. And ultimately, that's what seemingly happened. We have reports that the Giants offered 9 years and $360 million, and make no mistake, that is a strong offer. It's $40 million a year for a guy going into his age 31 season. It sets a record for average annual value at $40 million a year for a position player by a lot, and it sets the record for the largest free agent deal in the history of the sport. So to say that it wasn't a strong push by the Giants would just be factually incorrect. And what the reporting is that the Padres swooped in and potentially offered him 10 years, $400 million, and that there is a legitimate report out there that the Giants were believed to be willing to go to that level as well, but that that Judge went to Hal Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, and they had a conversation, and Steinbrenner said, "Do you want to be a Yankee?" And Judge said, "Yes, I do, but I have more money on the table elsewhere." The Yankees were reportedly at that point at 8 years, $320 million, and they added that ninth year at another $40 million a year to match the Giants' offer, and it was a done deal. And so when it comes down to it, this is what we've said all along, is that ultimately we expect the money to be similar enough where it just comes down to what does Judge want, and what he wanted clearly. It could not be more clear that this just simply came down to that his preference all along was to re-sign with the New York Yankees. And so, yes, the Giants got played by Aaron Judge. There's also a report that that video of him arriving at that hotel was staged. And probably this Time magazine release of these quotes that we discussed last night with Judge, just the timing, right? The timing of this Time magazine piece coming out yesterday with the quotes from Judge saying that he thought in 10 years he's going to play for the San Francisco Giants. Also quotes about how upset he was that the contract offer that the Yankees had given him before the 2022 season that he had turned down went public, and how upset he was by that. It was all to play the Yankees, really, also. But anyway, I just want to be clear. Like, that's his right as a free agent. That's his agent's job, is to get the best offer that he can get, and the Giants got used. And so when all is said and done, it's very disappointing, and the Giants feel like they finished, that they're always a bridesmaid and never the bride and all that stuff, and I completely understand it. But when all is said and done, you just simply can't control what a player wants. If there's any criticism to hand out specifically to the Giants in this situation, to me, it's not about the effort they made during the offseason to sign Judge. They did the best they could have possibly done, in my opinion. But if there's criticism to hand out here, it's that they didn't have a better situation in place currently, and that last offseason they didn't add impact free agent talent. There was a lot of impact, talent out there on the free agent market on the position player side, and they just didn't sign anybody. We don't really know who they were after or not after. That's the thing, is this stuff doesn't always get leaked. And the Giants, we got almost no information out of the Giants on this Judge pursuit, or out of any reporters about the Giants regarding this Judge pursuit. And so we don't know last offseason. They may have made a lot of strong efforts as well. The simple fact is a lot of players just don't want to play here, especially hitters. It is not a good place to hit, and you have a hard time luring players to come play here. But the Giants, if you want to criticize the front office and Farhan Zaidi, the criticism is that 5 years in, or 4+ years in, they are not in a position where they're like a super attractive destination. They kind of have to sell themselves up. And that continues by not getting Judge, right? It's hard to, there would be like a snowball effect potentially. If you sign an Aaron Judge, somebody else probably wants to come play for you. But if you don't sign Judge, it just continues. And it actually, to me, emphasizes like strongly the real critical importance of developing and like drafting and developing your own players. Because if you think about the championship era for the Giants, who were the core players on that team? Was it a bunch of free agents, or was it homegrown talent like Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner, Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, and Pablo Sandoval? Like homegrown talent, because you have it just like with Judge wanting to return to New York. You have this built-in advantage on keeping those players. Not just do you have many years of club control when they first come up, but then they get really familiar with you and they want to stay potentially. And so, yeah, it's critically important. That's why when I'm hearing people suggest trade Marco Luciano for Brian Reynolds, okay, maybe you consider it, but also like 3 years of Brian Reynolds versus 6 of a 21-year-old Marco Luciano, who may or may not be an impact player. I'm just not sure you're in a position where you can just be mortgaging the future. Again, that's how they lost Brian Reynolds, right? I get it. It was 1 year of McCutchen for, like I'm saying with Luciano, it's a long-term situation with Reynolds when he went to Pittsburgh in that fateful, awful trade by the Giants. But you want to do the same thing, essentially, with giving Luciano and his future potentially to the Pirates in exchange for a shorter-term player. So it's a delicate thing here, but when all is said and done, it's just a disappointing day for the Giants, and that the ultimate takeaway is that they got used. They did get used to get, they put out a really strong offer. I cannot emphasize enough, $40 million a year for Judge. Trey Turner is like probably, if not the second best player in this free agent class, the third best. He and Carlos Correa are kind of neck and neck. His average annual value is $27.3 million that he got from his new deal. 27.3 going through his age 40 season. Aaron Judge gets $40 million a year going through his age 39 season. So it's roughly through the same age. More peak years with Trey Turner, and Judge gets $13 million a year more. It's analytically speaking an overpay for Aaron Judge at that price. There's other factors that go into it besides performance on the field. There's ticket sales and fan interest and jerseys and all that stuff. I get it. So when all that's accounted for, that changes the calculus somewhat. But Judge is not that much better of a player than Trey Turner or even Carlos Correa. He's better, I would say, right now, but he's not like 3 times better. Not that the money is 3 times more. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. But coming up next, where do the Giants go from here after missing on their top target? He was clearly their top target, but unfortunately, they were not his top target. So we'll turn our attention to what do the Giants do next in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Simply Safe. At Locked On Giants, we believe that home should be where you and your family feel safest, especially over the holidays when we're dealing with package thefts and also just family in town and you want everything to feel safe and secure. This season, give yourself and your family the gift of peace and protection with the #1 rated home security system, Simply Safe. And right now, Simply Safe is offering Locked On Giants listeners 40% off a new security system. Don't put this off. Here's why I love it. I love, like it says, like we say, the safety and security of just knowing you're protected, whether you're home or away. I love being able to check the easy-to-use app on the crystal clear HD cameras and look outside, inside, wherever, and just feel safe and secure. Plus, in an emergency, Simply Safe has professional monitoring agents that use Fast Protect technology to capture critical evidence to verify the threat is real so that you can get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on my favorite security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb today. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, as promised, my famous line there. We're going to get more into what do the Giants do now. I'm kind of refreshing Twitter because you never know. Like we have said, the Giants need to perhaps act aggressively if they were to miss on Aaron Judge, and miss on Aaron Judge they did. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with the local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today is available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. So yes, what do the Giants do now? As I said the other day, Plan B is Carlos Correa. And it's not just me. We've got Susan Slusser of the San Francisco Chronicle, Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area, and others saying all along, even when Judge was involved, that Carlos Correa, we had a report yesterday from Carlos Baerga, who called the Justin Verlander contract for the Mets a day before anybody else, reporting that the Giants, he essentially said with the Giants signing Judge, they could also sign Carlos Correa tomorrow, is what he said last night. And so, as we said yesterday on the podcast, which came out super late, that was just a rumor until anybody else really reports it. So it's a rumor, but a lot of talk about Carlos Correa. But the problem is the Giants are not in a strong position from a leverage standpoint. Knowing with the whole league, and certainly Scott Boras, knowing that the Giants wanted Aaron Judge and that they did not get him, it puts them in a very weak position from a negotiating standpoint, and it also puts a lot of pressure on them just to simply get one player. Like Xander Bogaerts is also out there, as is Dansby Swanson, Carlos Rodón, Brandon Nimmo, Kodai Senga, and then a bunch of mid-tier players. Not that many mid-tier players, actually. The market has dropped off a lot. Like, a lot of players have signed. I wouldn't say that there are too many players, especially on the position player side, who have signed that I thought were realistic targets for the Giants. Trey Turner would have fit the Giants really well, but it was evident that he wanted to go east. And so I didn't think that it was likely at all that the Giants would end up with Trey Turner. So why do I think that there's even any chance that they could get Carlos Correa? I'll say what I've said all along. Correa himself has been pretty darn clear that money talks for him. And that, to me, like the Giants have $360 million in their, to spend. And that not just 360, but $40 million a year. And so, not that Correa is going to get $40 million a year, although who knows, this market has been insane. But like I said, Trey Turner is kind of comparable to Correa. They're different players, but the value is similar. A lot of debates about who's the better of the two players in this market, and different people say different things. So there's not a clear player who's way better than the other when it comes to Correa and Turner. And they're similar in age, but Correa is a year younger. And like I said with Turner, he got 11 years. Maybe I didn't even say this. I said it the other day. It's just a fact. He got 11 years, $300 million from the Phillies, which on first glance might sound like, holy cow, that's so much money. But it's a very reasonable $27.3 million per year. Oh, I did say that, right? Because Judge got $40 million a year. That doesn't align with value. That's just the Yankees. The fact that that's what it took the Yankees in order to get Judge actually tells you how strong the Giants actually came in here, and that it pushed it to that level, because that is way above what people were predicting Judge would get. And so for Correa, though, say you take that $27.3 million to Trey Turner, and say you add an extra year because he's a year younger than Trey Turner, and you make it a 12-year deal, that would come out to 12 years, $327.3 million. And like I said, the Giants were willing to spend $40 million a year on Judge. They were willing to hand out a $360 million contract. And so, to me, very reasonable. 12 years, $327.3 million for Correa. I would do that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I'm sure they would prefer not to go that many years. And so maybe you make it 10 years, but you make it more per year. Like, I don't know, 10-300 probably doesn't get it done at this point, given the way the market has gone and given that everybody knows the Giants are desperate. And so, look, can you promise that you're going to get a player even if you make your best effort, even if you overpay? The Padres reportedly offered Trey Turner $42 million more than the Phillies, and he took the Phillies' offer because that's where he wanted to be. Free agency is unpredictable, and so the Giants are kind of in a position where they need to overpay for Carlos Correa. Some might disagree with that, but I don't really. But maybe he just flat out has told Scott Boras, his agent, I don't want to play for the Giants. Get as much as you can get from them, and then we'll ask somebody else to match it, and then we'll go somewhere else. That's a total possibility, and that would just be really sad from the San Francisco Giants perspective. There aren't that many players left to spend a lot of money on if that's the intention. In terms of guys, even just over $50 million in terms of the predicted contracts based on, there's a number of methodologies we can use here, but what I did is ESPN, MLB Trade Rumors, and Fangraphs had like official free agent predictions. I wrote them all down in a spreadsheet, and I took the median of the three. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. The guys who are predicted to land deals worth more than $50 million in total. There's only a handful of them left. I mean, a couple hands full of them left. Let's see. This is 8 guys left at $50 million or more, and 5 of them at $100 million or more in terms of the predictions, and only 1 at $200 million or more, and that's Correa. Next would be Bogaerts. So Correa, the prediction, by the way, is 9 years, $288 million. I would expect he's going to do better than that, as a lot of these players have done at this point, better than the predictions. Xander Bogaerts predicted at 7 years, $189 million. It talks of him having intensifying talks with the Red Sox today. And if he goes off the board, it's just Correa and Swanson from the shortstop perspective. And Swanson was my least favorite of the 4. He's the one with the biggest questions about the bat. Correa is my favorite of the 4, and he's still out there. Other shortstops, like I said, Dansby Swanson, the prediction is 6 years, $150 million. Carlos Rodón, the prediction is 5 years, $130 million, but we're hearing talk that he could command a deal north of $200 million. The market has been insanely hot, and I think that the Giants just need to blow Carlos Correa out of the water and that it would be worth it. The other players predicted at over $100 million, or just one more, Brandon Nimmo at 5 years, $110. Kodai Senga predicted 5 years, $72. Andrew Benintendi, 4 years, $54 million. Chris Bassett, 3 years, $54 million. And Nathan Eovaldi. Oh, no, Eovaldi's under $50 million. So those are the guys. So there's only a handful of guys there. I think Nimmo, Rodón, Bogaerts, and Correa. I would kind of not be as thrilled about Dansby Swanson. He's a good player, former number 1 overall pick. But there's basically 4 guys. And if the Giants don't end up with any of them, it's going to be really hard to add impact talent. They would have to do it through a trade. And there are some guys, like that's when you perhaps pivot to a Brian Reynolds. Perhaps eventually maybe Shohei Ohtani does become available, even though the Angels have said that they won't trade him. But Correa, I just want to be clear that I saw on MLB Network today that Chris Russo, Mad Dog Chris Russo, he was talking about how Correa, the Giants are going to maybe try to sign Correa and that it's just a huge drop-off and that Giants fans won't buy it as a replacement for Judge. And he's not the same status as an Aaron Judge, but the idea that Carlos Correa is not a great player is wrong, in my opinion. So coming up in just a minute, the numbers behind who is Carlos Correa and why he would be such a strong fit for the Giants and be potentially an impact player, and is 3 years younger than Aaron Judge. So it could end up perhaps being a better deal if you can land the player, a big major if. And then we'll also briefly mention, as we did yesterday, the Giants signed a player last night. They signed Mitch Haniger. So a little more about Haniger as well in just a minute. But before we get into all of that, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline. The whole offseason, we've been talking about the Aaron Judge odds. A lot of the time, the odds were like, if he leaves New York, where's he going? And I think it really did come down to the Giants or the Yankees. But ultimately, the pull of pinstripes was too much. But as we have been saying, if Judge leaves, and by leaves, I mean doesn't sign with the Giants, I think the Correa to the Giants odds go way up. And so I haven't actually looked as of this morning, but I would check that out. If they're still having the Giants with implied odds of around 25%, I think that's too low. I think it's more than that. But hey, if you believe there's no way any good players want to come here, then maybe it's not the best opportunity, but then maybe you see another opportunity for Correa. So there's a lot you can check out there with knowledge about where the Giants stand at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, here we go. We are going to get into Carlos Correa. Like, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are there really people out there who don't think that this is a very, very, very good player? He's one of the better, top 15 players in Major League Baseball. Carlos Correa is no slouch at all. Former number one overall pick himself, like Dansby Swanson, just turned 28. It's rare that you get a free agent who is this age and is this good. He was a free agent last year, and the Giants, this is like the type of guy I'm talking about. They could have signed him to a long-term deal, had him in place, and then perhaps been a more attractive destination for an Aaron Judge. That's a real criticism. But they didn't. We don't know if they tried. He ended up with this strange deal with the Twins, 3 years, $105.3 million, I think, and with opt-outs after every year. And he had a good year, and he opted out. And that's basically all he wanted to do. I think there were some concerns with the injury history he's had, although he's now had 3 straight pretty darn fully healthy seasons. And also the Astros sign stealing stuff. I think there was a little bit of skepticism, like, were your numbers legit because you guys were cheating? But he went on last year and this year to post, a combined, let's see, what did he do the last 2 years? Hit 285 with a 366 on base and 476 slugging. While he wasn't great defensively this year, he's been the guy who's been the better defender among all these shortstops over the duration of his career, and he's only 28 years old. And so I think defense is not really a problem for Carlos Correa. He is he brings an edge to a team, and I think that the Giants kind of lack that, and he would be a really strong, personality, a great fit. He's really into the analytics. He's very smart, and so I personally like that about him. He's like, batting average doesn't mean anything. It's not about batting average or home runs or RBIs. It's about weighted runs created plus, wins above replacement. He understands all that, and his weighted runs created plus, which 100 is league average. He was at 140 last year, 40% above average offense. No disrespect to Christopher Russo, but he's 22 home runs, 64 RBI. Don't care at all. It's the weighted runs created. That stuff is contextual. I guess home runs aren't contextual, but RBIs are contextual. If he played in the middle of a better lineup, he would have had more. That's just how that works. And yeah, I mean, he doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he does hit a lot of extra bases. He's just a very, very good player and a winner and a postseason performer. And the Dodgers hate him because they believe, he was one of the central figures that stole a World Series from them in 2017. So it would just add a lot of spice there. The question is, does he want to play here? I think there's no doubt the Giants want this player. But as we saw today, even with a guy they think does want to play here, he ultimately didn't want to play here. And so, I don't know. If they miss out, it'll be fascinating to see what they do, because they have the money to spend and a willingness to spend it, but perhaps running out of players who would take their money, essentially. So there's a lot of pressure on them now to get something done. But yesterday, I mean, the episode was a lot about Aaron Judge and all the crazy rumors. Of course, I didn't even mention today, I don't think, that John Heyman said the Giants were getting Judge, or it appeared that they were getting Judge, and they didn't. So I will never forgive John Heyman for that. But lost in all that, they signed Mitch Haniger, and we talked about it yesterday. If you want more on Mitch Haniger, check out yesterday's episode. I think it's in, the third segment of the show when we get into Haniger. But he's a quality player, and part of the reason he did want to play here is he's from the area. He lives in the Santa Cruz area. He wanted to be somewhere where he could drive to the ballpark. And quality player, quality bat, everyday player, not a platoon player. So they need more everyday players. He's one of them. Complimentary piece, I guess you could say, but again, not complimentary in the way that you're used to with the Giants. Complimentary in the sense that he's just a good everyday player, but he's not Aaron Judge. And so, yeah, I'm happy with the Mitch Haniger signing. He has a lot of power upside. This guy hit 39 home runs a couple of years ago. Career isolated power of 215 is just really strong. Pull hitter with his home runs, and so that kind of plays better at Oracle Park. And I think it's a good fit. 3-year deal with an opt-out after the second year. Payroll in year one is low because the Giants wanted more payroll to be able to add more players. And so I do believe they're still in play for all those guys I just mentioned as the top free agents left. Just going to be a matter of can they come away with any of them, which is never a guarantee. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day. Unfortunately, going to be all about Aaron Judge to New York today. I'm on there, I think, but in the Giants didn't get Judge sense. Plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Hopefully better news tomorrow for the Giants. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.